Okay,
Okay,
Stella,
I
if you
hope
want to start, then I think
I
that's
know
okay.
people now. But hi everybody, my name is Tsela Zoksang. Tsela Tashle Nimingla Tsela Zoksangi. I will be hosting today's discussion, today's episode of SFT Live. Thank you everybody for joining. Today's episode will be in English. However, there are some programs in Tibetan language that are on SFT's Facebook page. So today's episode is the first one in which we'll be solely focusing on Hong Kong. We decided to do this episode as with the new national security laws, which I'm sure many of you have heard about. The political and human rights situation in Hong Kong is growing increasingly more dire. And, I think as Tibetan activists and, advocates for human rights in general, it's crucial to engage and to stand in solidarity with the Hong Kong democracy movement, as well as to ensure that they don't lose the same freedoms that we've been fighting for in Tibet and that we've seen been lost in Tibet. So everyone at SFT is honored to have two great young activists with us today to help us better understand the situation. We have Joyce Ho. So Joyce is a senior at Bronx High School of Science, correct?
Yes.
She became involved with the Hong Kong democracy movement last summer as the protests were growing, and over the past year, Joyce has advocated for Hong Kong through many different channels. She's participated in rallies, she's spoken at panels, organized public events, and she's been particularly passionate about raising awareness regarding the CCP's power and raising awareness regarding how destructive it is not only for Hong Kongers, but for human rights across the globe. So we're so happy that you could join us today. And we also have Matan, who is a middle school kid. Are you in 7th grade or 8th grade?
Yeah, I'm in 7th grade right now.
7th grade. Cool. So he went viral on social media after holding up a shirt at an NBA game. And since then, Matan has been making videos on YouTube and on Twitter in support of Hong Kong and updating, making videos about the Hong Kong police's abuse of power and as well as like coronavirus. So he's been keeping us all updated. But with all that being said, we can hear from Joyce, who's going to give us some background on what's occurring in Hong Kong and what's some recent events.
Okay, yeah, so I'm really glad to be here. So I'm just going to start by talking about what really started all of this, which would be the Sino-British Joint Declaration of 1997. And this is the whole one country, two systems idea that everybody's always talking about. This is the declaration that was established in 1997 between Britain and China. And basically what it stated was that Hong Kong's previous capitalist system under the British government will remain unchanged until 2047, which was 50 years from 1997. And this whole declaration maintains that Hong Kong will have its own independent judicial, executive, and legislative power. So just like a democracy would have, that's what they are, even though they are located in China. So it also allows for independent financial systems and to retain the status of Hong Kong being what we know it as an international financial center, and allows free flow of capital in Hong Kong. And it ensures that Hong Kong has democratic elections, which we've seen has been slowly being taken away from Hong Kongers in this past year and even more in the past. And lastly, it definitely encourages that Hong Kongers have freedom of speech, press, and assembly. A lot of the things that as Americans we think of having and are proud to have. And so this declaration we know that it's supposed to be until 2047. So what happened in Hong Kong since the return to China is that an extradition bill was proposed in 2019, which was last year, which sparked all of these protests. And the extradition bill was proposed due to a Hong Kong resident who murdered his pregnant girlfriend in Taiwan, but was able to evade justice by returning to Hong Kong. And the extradition bill essentially states that he can be tried in China under a different set of laws than Hong Kong and Taiwan. And this causes a lot of issues within Hong Kong because it first shows that China is trying to overstep its powers under the declaration that I just talked about earlier, and it also it's just not something that they agreed to in 1997. And the pro-Chinese government in Hong Kong pushed this extradition bill to plug any of the existing loopholes to any of the jurisdiction in Taiwan and mainland China. So that was a really big deal, and that's what sparked all of the protests. And you see, like, a lot of the young generation in Hong Kong are starting to realize that this is something that's going to impact them the most. And that's why we see that the Hong Kong protests are so mainly based on student-led protests, or like younger generation students and stuff like that. A lot of schools and universities, they're really protesting the hardest, and it is because it will affect the younger generation the most, and it is most important to them to see that the home that they love so much can be saved and should not be taken over by China, because they appreciate the democracy that they've always had since they were born, and it's a really important part of a lot of their identities, and it's understandable why they're so angry about it. So just going into more recent news, besides the protests, it's the national security law was recently proposed in Hong Kong. And the biggest issue behind this national security law is that it really, really is just, it's China overstepping everything that it agreed to in 1997. And just for those of you who may not really know what the security law is, it basically prevents any external interference in Hong Kong's affairs. So any countries that are concerned with the fact that Hong Kong is losing its democracy no longer have that kind of ability to say, hey, you're breaching a contract that you made with in 1997. Why are you doing this? There's no longer that kind of ability. The second is it criminalizes acts that threaten the national security, such as subversion and secession. So those are some things that are pretty serious, I would like to say. And a third thing that it does is that it allows the Central People's Government to establish a national security agency in Hong Kong when necessary. So basically all of these officials are going to be in Hong Kong. It's no longer going to be its own democracy, its own government. It's actually going to be a part of China's government. And as we all know, it is a communist state, which is very radically different from what Hong Kong currently has. And one last thing it does is that it requires the chief executive of Hong Kong, Carrie Lam, to send the central government periodic reports on the national security of Hong Kong. So it really, the more you hear about it, the more you realize that it really has to do with like combining Hong Kong back into China. And it's a problem just because first it is 20 years early, 27 years early, and second because the people of Hong Kong don't want to see this land that they grew up in, this democratic state, become a communist state under China's law. And yeah, that's the basic background of everything.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing all of that and giving us an update on recent news. Matan, would you mind sharing your story and kind of delving into what sparked your decision to get involved in the Hong Kong democracy movement?
Yeah, thank you. So basically, I think it was in November or October of last year, I was at a game, an NBA game, and I held up a shirt that said "Free Hong Kong" and fight for like their rights. And the clip ended up going viral. And since then, I've been making videos about how the Hong Kong police are completely overstepping their boundaries and how they are extremely violent to innocent protesters and journalists in Hong Kong. I've showed probably over 300 clips at this point, and they keep doing this. And also the government there is overstepping their boundaries and continuously doing this. And yeah, that's basically what I've done.
Right. Can you speak to, because I know almost every day you're updating your channel and discussing police brutality in Hong Kong. Can you give us any recent updates of maybe the worst cases you've seen so far?
Yeah, recently I've actually seen some cases where the Hong Kong police cornered innocent journalists, and then from the other side of the journalists, other Hong Kong police came from the back and just started pepper spraying the journalists. So you see that these people were completely innocent, and then they actually got pepper sprayed because the Hong Kong police obviously didn't want them to report on what was actually happening in Hong Kong, which was that the Hong Kong police were attacking innocent people like them.
Got it. Got it. Thank you for sharing that. So now we're going to move into a sort of Q&A session. I have a few questions prepared for both Joyce and Matan, and then afterwards we'll answer some questions from any viewers. So if you do have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and we will try and answer them afterwards. But firstly, for Joyce, I have a question for you. You've been working on Project Black Mask. Can you tell us a little bit more about that initiative? What started it? What is its purpose? And like, what do you see in the future for that initiative?
Yeah, so Project Black Mask is something that I thought of during this quarantine, just because you're seeing a lot of different kind of online activities that are going on, not just online classes, but we have online concerts and stuff like that. And I think that it is really important that we come together as a community, and we're able to do something online for Hong Kong and show our support for the people there. And going to rallies was such a big part of my life last summer, and even into the beginning of the school year before it got cold. I did a lot of like protesting on the streets, and it was a really, really nice thing to just be able to communicate with people that had the same kind of values as me and be able to cheer on each other. And Project Black Mask is all about that. The first few videos that we posted on Project Black Mask HK on YouTube is just videos that people from all over the world have sent us, where they say, I'm from blank and I stand with Hong Kong, or any sort of slogan that they feel is appropriate. And these videos have really encouraged a lot of people in Hong Kong, I hope, and allowed them to realize that, you're not alone, the world stands with you. And it honestly has brought so many of us together. I've met so many people through the project, and it's been such a great experience. And Project Black Mask, we really hope that it becomes a very international kind of idea, where we have a lot of different organizations that become involved in it. And I think it's been a really, really cool thing to see so many different people be interested in doing and submitting these 5-second videos. And I hope that in the future, Project Black Mask becomes something that's more artistic if it needs to be, and also more serious if it needs to be. I do really hope that we have people all over the world that can be a part of our channel. It's not just me, it's all of us. I'm not necessarily the only person that can create these videos. I think everybody has that kind of ability, and I really want it to be something that everybody knows about and everybody can be a part of. And I already have a lot of pictures. I go out and take a lot of pictures in New York, socially distant, of course, and make sure that I take a lot of photos with the flags that Hong Kongers have designed for this movement. And it's been really, really cool to see people on the streets supporting us. So the next kind of project that we have is the ongoing project that I'm still doing. It just all has to do with from right now, I really want people to continue sending us videos so that I can keep putting them together. That's been really awesome. I've also seen a lot of artwork on the streets that really do support freedom, and whether it's just freedom for Hong Kong or freedom for any place on the planet, it's been really nice to take photos with those things. And I hope that we can create some sort of art video where people from all over the world send in those kinds of recordings. And I hope to be posting more videos with the anniversary of different events of the Hong Kong movement. So Project Black Mask is not just something that's, one and done. It's something that I really hope to continue moving forward with, and showing people that Hong Kong's democracy movement is it's not over just because it's been a year. It's actually still growing. We're still strong, and we're influencing more people to support the movement. And it's a YouTube video like Project Black Mask, I think, is definitely capable of showing people that, the world stands with Hong Kong, and there's no debate about that. Yeah.
What is the channel called, just so that anybody watching can go check
So it's Project Black Mask HK. And so far we have 2 videos on there, and they're both around 2 minutes long.
Yeah. That's such a great way to, create a chain of solidarity across platforms, across communities. Across the globe.
Yeah, our videos are definitely not just limited to showing support for Hong Kong. We've had people from different organizations show support for their own. So for Tibet, people have, sent in videos and said that, we're from this organization and we support Hong Kong. And I honestly, I do really hope that my channel becomes something that is not just for Hong Kong, but it's for all of the different movements against the CCP. So we can really stand together as a family, because that is really what we are. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then Matan, I have a question for you. Okay.
Yeah.
So your activism was first recognized at that NBA game. But, some people did respond negatively, not just to you, but to anybody who sort of mixes politics with sports or entertainment. What would you say to those people who think that entertainment shouldn't be mixed with, human rights concerns? How would you respond to that?
Well, I mean, at the time, it wasn't really interrupting anything because, I mean, to the point that it was interrupting something that they're, relaxing and they get to enjoy a sports game or something similar like that. It was actually at a timeout where nothing was happening and it was a dance cam. And even if they still didn't like it, I mean, I think honestly, Hong Kong's rights and the people's rights is probably more important than this NBA game, and especially this timeout that these people were probably angry about.
Right. And I love your slogan. It's keep fighting for those basic human rights at the end of all of your videos. How do you think that we can encourage, whether it be over social media or just dialogue with one another, how do you think we can encourage promoting human rights concerns in any environment, whether it be at a sports game or whether it be in school, wherever, how do you think, what would you suggest?
I mean, of course, you can tell people about it. You can talk to people about it on social media. You can do stuff kind of similar to what I've done, where I make videos about it almost every day. You can also, when obviously Corona is over or when lockdown is over, you can go to protests to, help spread the word. You can make signs. There's a lot of different things you can do to get the word out, and you can try to tell people what's actually happening. And if they are reasonable, they'll probably understand why it's so important to you and many others.
Right. And so then a question I have for both of you is, now more than ever, we're seeing the CCP repressing dissenting voices, repressing any opinion that criticizes the CCP in the slightest. And it's becoming, along with technology and, surveillance, and it's becoming increasingly hard and increasingly dangerous for people in Hong Kong or for people in China or Tibet to raise their voices. So what do you suggest is the best way for people outside of Hong Kong to support the movement? Are there any resources that you guys have found particularly helpful or particularly valuable that you would suggest others use, or what?
Something that I found is useful is, of course, social media, and especially YouTube and Twitter. I personally had a lot of my stuff taken down because it had been reported, obviously falsely, because probably again by a lot of Chinese bots and by a lot of similar things to that, because they don't want the truth to come out and similar stuff. But again, social media is a very good platform to spread the word. So I'll pass it to Joyce so she can talk.
I completely agree. I think I started on social media as well. I started on Instagram, just promoting all of the events that are happening. And I think it's really important to speak to people. Now what we in Hong Kong and Tibet need is just for more people to understand what's happening. So I think the biggest thing is definitely talk to those closest to you, because maybe there's nothing you can do directly with the Hong Kongers to support it. Like, you can donate money and stuff, but unfortunately the government has taken away a lot of the money that they've raised, and they've raised millions of dollars, but it's not necessarily the best route to go, because you never know what's going to happen to that. But I think right now Hong Kongers do need the support of people to understand what's happening. And even to those people that I've spoken to that don't stand with the same opinions that I have, it's important to discuss with them. It's important to understand why they believe in something and maybe try to change their opinions. But at the same time, talking to somebody who doesn't agree with you is a really great way of learning what you can say next time to, I don't want to say argue, but like argue with them about, any sort of things. And I've found it really, really nice and interesting to have like calm discussions with people. Of course, you don't want to get violently involved, and there have been a lot of people that are violent overseas, but just by being open to talking, I think it's a good enough way to get the discussion going.
Right, right. And I guess expanding on what you were talking about, and as you've been saying, engaging dialogue with those who disagree with you, have you come across many, and this can be for both you and Matan, have you come up across many people who oppose what you're saying, whether it be on social media or whether it be physically at a protest? Have you come up across a lot of opposition or any before?
Yeah, all the time. It's this is definitely not something that we're quiet about on either side. The people that support China are very vocal about it. They have a platform to stand on, and people allow it to happen sometimes. And I've been to rallies where some mainland students will come to us and say, what you're saying about Tiananmen Square, it never happened. This is not an event that occurred in history. Like, it's very difficult to argue with these people and talk to them. And we've had people threaten us violently and throw stuff and try to hit you. And I think it's difficult to kind of not be angry at them, but you get to a certain point where you just choose to ignore what's happening. Or in terms of on social media, for me, whenever somebody's just really rude, I either ignore them or I report them if it's something that's really, really horrible. But I think you slowly start to learn how to deal with these kinds of people. And honestly, the best advice I give to a lot of people that don't really know how to handle this is the more you stay calm, the more angry that they get. And the more angry they get, the worse it is for them. And that's what it is.
And Matan, what about you?
I've had basically the same experience. Besides, I'd say the protests. I've only went to, I'd say maybe 8 protests in LA. Of course, not as big as probably some of the ones that Joyce has went to or has set up. And I haven't really had that many people oppose me at the protest, since most of them support what we're all saying, and it's all generally the same opinion there, since we're protesting the same thing. But online, of course, there's been a lot of people who disagree, and a lot of people obviously don't like what I'm saying. And honestly, the best way I could deal with it, and I recommend for other people, is just you kind of ignore it. I don't actually really care, to be honest.
Got it. So now we're going to move into the questions from the audience. So if anyone who's recently joined wants to ask any questions, feel free, and we'll, Joyce and Matan. So for Joyce, if people want to participate in Project Black Masks, should they send videos directly to your Instagram, or where should they send videos?
Yeah. So I completely forgot about that. Yeah. So we have an email that most people send it to. It's called hkblackmask@gmail.com. So it's pretty simple. hkblackmask@gmail.com.
Cool. What actions can we take to pressure U.S. government to support Hong Kong?
Oh, wow. I think we have a lot of petitions going on change.org. If you search those up, maybe it can make a difference. I think I've written personally a lot of letters to different people that represent us in our government. I think that it does help. Mike Pompeo is somebody that I've written a letter to, and he's somebody that really does support Hong Kong. And I think it's important to kind of talk about how you are American and how you believe in the freedoms in Hong Kong, and that you think that the United States needs to get involved with that. And I think a really great talking point to go off of is definitely the fact that China has breached its contract for the Sino-British Joint Declaration of 1997, and that we believe that if China breached its side of the contract, then Hong Kong is not subject to going back to China in 27 years. So that's something that we talk about a lot, and that's action that we can make with our government.
Right. And Matan, I have a question. Somebody asked about you doing something with the World of Warcraft at BlizzCon. making some action. What was that? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So Blizzard is a company. It's a gaming company, and I think one of the people who was a professional who played one of their games came out and supported Hong Kong. So they actually took away all of his earnings since he won. I think it was thousands of dollars they took it away from him, and they actually banned him. So then at the convention, there was I forgot what it's called. There was a thing where it was basically a Q&A where they were letting people ask questions about the game. So during the Q&A, I just got up and I kind of just went over to the mic and I told them, I said free Hong Kong, I said all of that. And I kind of just interrupted it because, of course, there were actually protests outside of BlizzCon, right outside. They weren't really trying to stop it, but at the same time, they didn't really support it. And they were being extremely negative because they were scared China might, take away their money or something, since this person who was a pro for them had said something against what obviously China supports.
Right, right. Another question is, with the new national security law being implemented in Hong Kong, how do you think this will impact student activism in Hong Kong? How have student allies living outside Hong Kong been responding to this news?
Is this question for me or Joyce?
I guess Joyce, but if you have something to say about it, go for it.
No, I'm fine. I'll let her talk.
The national security law is definitely something that is scary for activists in Hong Kong, but I do think that none of them have really ever stopped, even with the threat of China. I think that this national security law is only going to push them further, and it's really interesting to see that they have I've heard a lot of interviews of these student activists in Hong Kong, and they've said, like, we have so little to lose at this point that we might as well just put it all on the line, So I really think that this national security law is just going to spur them all on a lot more. And as allies of them living wherever you are, I think that it's really important to first encourage them and tell them that we really do stand behind you, but also read what they have to say and make sure that we're all on the same page. I think, I do follow a lot of different activists in Hong Kong because they are directly in the middle of all of it, and it's really important to make sure that everything that we say in the US, because we are spreading awareness to people that really do not have any knowledge of what's happening, we need to make sure that it's on the same page as those in Hong Kong so that we can spread accurate information.
Right, right. This question is for both Joyce and Matan. As both of you are young activists, what advice can you give to other students or young people who might be hesitant to join the movement or become activists? What would you say to them?
Matan.
Oh, I'll go. If you want to, but maybe you're scared of something like the hate, or maybe you're scared that people will try to attack you for it or anything like that. Normally there isn't that much because it's by most people, besides, of course, people who live in mainland China and a lot of the Chinese government, it's pretty much accepted that Hong Kong is fighting for their rights, and that a lot of people, including people in the US and Europe and Hong Kong, and a lot of people in China too, do support the movement. So don't worry about getting hate or anything like that, and you should definitely step up and try to talk about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I really do think that, if it's something that you believe in, it's completely worth it. 1 year ago, if you would have asked me, I would have been really afraid of what people have been saying to me in this past year. But as you grow, you also learn how to handle these kinds of things, and you learn that, standing up for what you believe in is way more worth it than being afraid of what people will say to you. And as Matan said, a lot of people do support this movement. It's really not just something that we're fighting alone. We have so many allies and so many different organizations that we can stand behind. And even if you don't want to be somebody that shows their face all the time, you can do something in terms of maybe organizing an event or doing videos on YouTube, or even just attending rallies. It does make a difference. It's the little things that make the biggest difference.
Right. Okay, next question. What do you think is the role of future collaboration between Hong Kongers, Uyghurs, Taiwanese, and Tibetan activists? Do you think this collaboration is important?
Yeah, for sure. We're all fighting the same war, and it's super important for us to all come together because no, we're not all as huge as China. You know, they have so many people in their country, and a lot of them are being fed this improper propaganda, and we need to stand together. And even if all of us together we don't like equal even close to the population of what China has, but you know, we have enough people to make a difference to let the world hear what we're having to say. And you know, the population of the world versus China is, you know, we have a lot of people, so it's really important for all of us to stand together. And I think that a lot of the organizations globally, we're all working together and trying to start campaigns and stuff, and it's been really nice to see that, you know, we're really really doing this together. And even in New York we had rallies together between Tibetan Americans and Hong Kongers in the US, so it was really really nice to see that kind of collaboration between each other. And I think that we'll continue to do that because we are doing the same kind of thing and we're fighting the same enemy. So yeah.
Right. Okay. For both of you, what's the best or funniest memory you've had from a protest or a rally, if you have one that particularly stands out?
Like Matan might have one. I gotta think about this.
I've had some not necessarily funny moments, but some good moments. You know, I actually really enjoy going to these protests to support everything that me and these people are fighting for and protesting for. So just in general, going to these protests, and especially when people actually acknowledge what you're doing, it is kind of the best feeling you can get when you're going to a protest.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have a lot of funny memories, but I do have like some very moving moments where, you know, we wear masks whenever we protest, whether or not it's because we don't want to show our face, or if it's just, you know, we want to stand in solidarity with the protesters in Hong Kong who are wearing masks. So I was at Washington Square Park and we were doing a protest, and a man, he passed by and he was really kind to us and he said, you know, I really support you guys. And then he ended up leaving and came back much later and handed us all of these masks, and they had like little smiley faces on them, but they were black. And I've worn it at a lot of protests because this man said to me, you know, I'm giving you this because right now you can't smile with your mask off because you're scared. But like, I hope that one day you can really take off the mask and smile for real, because Hong Kong has gained its independence, or Hong Kong has gained its democracy. And it was just a really moving moment for me, because he started telling us how we really did change his perspective that day, and we changed how he looks at the world in terms of, you know, you can't be so centralized in what's happening in the US. You have to understand what's happening globally. And it's just really nice to know that we've been able to educate so many people about the movements that are going on outside of the United States. And, you know, everything that's happening is important, but especially being able to tell somebody, having somebody say to you, like, you taught me something, that's like the most, you feel accomplished when you hear somebody say something like that. And I felt like, you know, I'm making a difference, whether it's really small or not, you know.
Right. That's really profound. Yeah. Okay. So a question for Matan. You never mentioned what made you bring that shirt to the NBA game. Can you tell us a little bit about why you, as a non-Hong Konger, got involved in this movement? When did you first learn about the human rights violations there?
So to give some context, the NBA game that I was at was probably the biggest one that was going to happen for the year or for a long time. And I didn't actually bring the shirt with me, but I had knew what was happening in Hong Kong just from watching some videos about it, and of course hearing about it on the news, YouTube, you know, Twitter and all of that. So there was actually kind of a protest where people were giving out thousands of these shirts. I think it was over 30,000 shirts they actually handed out. And when I was walking inside to the Staples Center, which is where the game was playing, I actually got one of the shirts. And to give more context again, I have season tickets to the team that was there, which was the Clippers. So I kind of knew how to get on the camera because I had done it before. You kind of just have to hold up their shirt because it will give them good promotion. So all I did is, since I had gotten that shirt and I had realized that I could spread the message of Hong Kong and their rights, I had held up the shirt, and then I had quickly switched it. And obviously, the NBA had already had to do with a lot with Hong Kong because, you know, China was already taking off a lot of one of the teams stuff because one of their players, well, actually not one of their players, I think their manager came out and supported Hong Kong. So the NBA was already, had a lot to do with Hong Kong. So that's why I did it.
Right. Another question for you, Matan. As a non-Hong Konger ally living in the U.S., have you noticed a difference in how aware other students in America are of China's role, and in particular, the situation in Hong Kong in the recent 1 to 2 years?
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't protesting 2 years ago, but I've been doing this for about a year. And when I had originally done it, of course, I think my clip helped spread a lot of, news about it and helped a lot of people know about what was actually going on. I think it was a lot of articles were made about it, and it went viral on Twitter. So a lot of people, especially kids and students who like basketball and stuff like that, we're seeing a lot of people talking about basketball and talking about the clip that I had shown, and of course that was making them more aware of it. And of course the news was starting to talk about it more. So, as time went on, more and more people who were actually outside of Hong Kong were getting to know about it.
Got it. And Joyce, when you were talking about different moments from the protests you attended, I thought of, do you have any advice when it comes to protests in particular, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement going on? Are there any specific tactics you've picked up or defense strategies that you've seen in terms of just, protecting oneself and
So we don't really encounter a lot of violence, but we do encounter a lot of verbal violence. And I think, the first thing to do is if you do have something really smart to say back to them, say it, but just be careful, especially with a lot of these mainland Chinese students in New York. They are very they're willing to hurt you. But sometimes you do really, really want to say something to them, because what they're saying is completely false. As I mentioned earlier, one of them said, Tiananmen Square never happened, and that it happened and you want to say something. So if you really, really, there's something that you really need to say it, but be careful. But a lot of the times I would just say, just ignore it. There's really no reason to involve yourself in people who will never change their minds. And you have better things to do with your life. You have different places to be. You can talk to people who you can really, really influence. And yeah, I mean, being on the streets and protesting, you see a lot of people who will ask you what's happening in Hong Kong, and those are the people that you want to talk to, as opposed to those who will just curse at you and tell you to go die. That's not the type of person you even want to try to talk to.
Right. And then I guess this will be our last question, but this can be for both of you. What gives you hope for the future of Hong Kong?
For me, it's just seeing so many people come together. Especially for the Black Lives Matter movement, I've seen, so many people are coming together, but they're also using these tactics that Hong Kongers have used. And it's they're realizing that this is a very similar kind of, there's police brutality that's happening in Hong Kong right now, and maybe we're not fighting for the exact same thing, but we are fighting against a very similar enemy in terms of on the ground, the violence that police are using on the protesters. Really, it's really serious. So, a lot of them are learning, we might need to put bricks in the road to block the cars from coming to us. And it's been really, really interesting to see that a lot of us are coming together and saying hey, we stand with each other, because we're not just fighting for our own causes, we're fighting for the world's causes. And just meeting so many different Americans who have no connections with what's happening in Hong Kong, but then saying, from now on, I'm going to follow the news because you guys changed my mind about something. That's something that's very, very powerful for me, and it gives me a lot of hope, because our government needs to see that we as Americans stand with Hong Kong, and it can really provide some change for us.
And Matan?
I completely agree with everything she said. Of course, it all makes sense. And also because you've seen a lot of protests going on in Hong Kong. And of course, before COVID-19, hit everywhere and it started to kind of shut down and cities went on lockdown, you saw huge protests going on in Hong Kong. And it doesn't really seem that it's just going to stop now. And honestly, as long as these protests are going to have thousands of people, probably tens of thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands, going to these protests continuously and fighting for their rights, honestly, this gives me hope.
Right. And it'd be great if either of you have any closing statements that you'd like share with the viewers today? Do you have anything to say?
I want to thank you all for coming and like listening to us. It's really inspirational to see that so many people support these causes and that we can work together to defeat the bigger evil. And just want to let you all know for Hong Kong, the Black Mask movement kind of project that I'm working on, we have a Facebook page as well. So if you search up like Project Black Mask HK, you'll find it, and we update you on the new videos that are coming up and stuff like that, and it'd be really incredible. And you can always message me on Facebook or on Instagram. My username is @JoyceMHO, and I'm so willing to talk to anybody. I really love talking to all of you, and I'm really, really glad that any of you came today, and I'm so appreciative for all of the support that you've all given me.
Matan?
I also want to say thank you to everybody who watched, and thank you to listening to us. As a final statement, kind of, if you can, of course, watch out for COVID, but, continue to protest, continue to try to spread the word, to free Hong Kong and to try to get the people of Hong Kong their rights back, because currently it's a huge fight going on between China and, of Hong Kong's people trying to get their rights back. So, of course, remember, keep fighting for that and keep supporting them.
Thank you. So I guess we're going to wrap up now, but Joyce and Matan, thank you guys so much for taking out your time to come and share your stories, experiences, and advice with us today. And to everyone watching, thank you for joining SFT's 21st episode of SFT Live. I hope everyone continues to stand in solidarity with Hong Kong and the many Hong Konger students that are, risking their lives every single day to fight for their basic human rights.
Thank you.
Thank you.